All right. Hi, how is everyone? I think we are live. I'm really excited to have you on. And I'm sorry, I know your username on Twitter is Toasted Network, but are you okay with giving your first name? If not, that's fine. We can just
Um,
refer to you as Toasted.
yeah, I prefer not to give my first name, for
Okay,
just don't want to get doxxed or anything like that. Just
gotcha.
yeah.
That's fair. So, Toasted, tell us about yourself a little bit.
Not that much. I'm currently going to college, trying to get a law degree. I mean, there's nothing much. You know, it's the I don't think really there is that much to say. Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, I guess where would you align yourself politically? I know you said you were like libertarian, right? Is that right?
I call myself more of a non-aggressionist. I'm not sure if I'm a libertarian or I'm a rightist because some stuff I agree with libertarian, some stuff I don't agree with them on. So I mean, like it's sort of a mixture, I guess you could say.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. So, like, how have you been feeling about the current political climate?
I don't like it that much. I don't like
Yeah.
yeah, I don't like what's happening with the left wing. Not sure where I agree with myself with right wing. Also, I don't like the TPUSA. Really, what they're doing. Not so into the Graper movement either. So I mean, I don't really, I feel like we're all in a bad direction. All,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Do you feel like the Groyper American First movement is like growing, or what are your thoughts on that? Do you think they're just not really a problem?
I don't think they're really a problem, but I think they're bad optics, and people will make them out to be a problem. I think
Mm,
they're making out the Trump presidency. I mean, it's not a presidency anymore, but they're making out the group of people like me that are Trump supporters to look bad.
mm,
I think it's going to eventually foil down because eventually, there are more. Believe it or not, he's not the most extreme on his level. He's not even for an ethno state right now, and there are people that are. And starting, I think it's going to collapse a little bit because they have other people on that direction that are starting to not like him so much. So but
Are you talking about Trump or are you talking about Nick?
Nick Fuentes. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like he's has some yikesy stuff. Like I know I've seen clips of him advocating for something like 80% white. And I just think in general that optics is generally bad. It's like why even be looking at people's, color is a little weird.
Well, I mean, right now he has sort of gone away from it. He's sort of like calling out other people for ethics. Do you know who Catboy Cammy is or Gypsy Crusader are?
Mm-mm.
They're sort
No.
of they're the mega Omega streamer. They're very very right wing. Like they're for a ethno state. Actually, they're for deporting black people out of America.
Hmm.
And he has called them out. He says, "You guys are bad optics." This one, Nick said, "You guys are bad optics. You guys are." They are. I can even sort of get the clip of it, and it's right
Not,
now.
mhm.
It's not
I'm sorry,
right.
go ahead.
It's right now starting a sort of a war right now. I think.
My issue is I understand that like Nick won't ever actually come out and be like, what wait ethno state, but like he's attacking the people who advocate for those things not based on their ideologies or how they view it and the reasons they view it. He's attacking them for specifically their optics, as you said, and that seems really disingenuous to me. Do you feel like that's the case, or do you feel like he genuinely doesn't really want a white ethno state? Do you think he's just trying to make the push for that a little bit more palatable to his audience, or do you think he's genuinely like thinking it's not a good idea? Because I think there's a big difference there.
I think he's he has said for political reasons he doesn't believe a white ethno state is possible. That's what he has said. He doesn't believe he has sort of given up on it. He wants to sort of fix the system. I'm not sure if I really get him so much if he's a
Mm,
troll or anything like that because many of his arguments are inconsistent. I don't know why he's going over to stop the steel marches. He's just making the Trump supporters look bad. I don't know
mhm.
if he gets that, and some stuff I might agree with him, but I think he goes about it the wrong way. Like I guess I agree with him maybe on I'm very religious in a way. I agree with him on gay marriage, but I don't believe that's saying shame, 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 shame to a trans person or shaming people for being gay is the answer to that. I believe that's not if you call yourself a Christian, you shouldn't be for that. You can maybe be considered a sin. I believe it's a sin, but you shouldn't like
Mhm.
hate the sinner, not the sin. And I don't think he. I mean, he's young, anyways. I mean, like that's the problem with young people. Speaking as a young person, they're not really so smart. Young people. I mean, they sort of no don't think too much.
Yeah.
They think they're
I,
smart.
I'm curious why, so are you against like gay marriage, or what's your perspective on gay marriage?
I don't really care that much about it. I used to be very good when I was in high school, but now it sort of doesn't really affect. If people want to, do anal in their bedroom, I really don't care. But the thing is, I guess the problem I do have with them is that they believe to force their beliefs on other people, like
Hmm.
forcing people to bake a cake. I believe that's hypocritical of them. You know, and a bunch of other stuff. I just don't. They're too forceful with their beliefs. And I believe it sort of became like they became like a mafia. Anybody that says anything against them, sort of like if you say that's not a choice,
Hmm.
you're going to be blacklisted by them. So I mean, like that's I guess why I have against. I mean, I don't care really about them. It doesn't really affect me that much. I mean, you know.
I guess going back more to the gay marriage itself, do you believe that they should have like the right to get married, or do you think that I know a lot of like conservatives have the position that marriage is between a man and a woman, it's a religious institution, therefore if they want they should just have like a civil union. Is that kind of where you stand, or do you believe that they
Um,
should?
I believe I believe the government should be out of marriage to begin with. I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, but I know many
Hmm.
people don't believe that. I don't believe government should be should be deciding that sort of thing because we don't. What's up? What you believe is marriage, and I believe is marriage is a totally different
Hmm.
way, I guess. So I mean, like it should be at the end. It should have been up to the states, but it is what it is. It's not like it's not the most. It's not affecting me right now. I'm more. I guess I'm more against the authoritarian side of them. That's why I'm.
Do you feel like the left or the right is more authoritarian at this point?
I believe the left is more authoritarian for because of their economics. Besides for the, because at least some of the right is okay with free markets and stuff like that. The left is not
Hmm.
for free markets. The left wants to doesn't believe in the, believes you could be able to tax people and stuff like that. So I believe that they're more authoritarian. I mean, I guess I'm sort of on the extreme side. I believe the libertarian side. I don't believe like in taxation whatsoever, or like I believe in unregulated markets. So
Right. I agree with you that there should be a free market. And that's honestly one of the bigger issues I have with Trump. Um, is that his I feel like his quotas really really taken a toll on the American economy. And that's one of the things I really don't like about him. And I think he uses that as kind of a talking point of, oh, I brought back all these jobs. But in reality, if you look at the statistics, you see them costing each for each job he brought back $800,000 to $900,000 per job. Is insane to me. And he's saying that's a good thing for the American economy. It's crazy.
I
Do
mean,
you agree with that, or?
I agree. I don't agree with him on on trade and with that sort of things, but I believe his economy is a better than a Biden economy or a Sanders economy because at least he will lower corporate tax rate,
Mm-hmm.
and at least he will. Oh, he at least he has some. But he's let's not get this. He's not a laissez-faire capitalist. He's not. He's not that big of a capitalist. He's not like a Rand Paul on capitalism. But I believe his vision is at least better than a Bernie Sanders or a Rand Paul.
Gotcha. So
I mean
my
Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. I like Rand Paul on economics. Sorry.
Right, that would make sense because since he's a libertarian.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my issue is that I agree that he framed the his tax cuts as being like helping the middle class, and I understand why he did that because I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, um, but I feel like his objective was to lower corporate tax rates, get corporations to come back to America, increase job rates, give like the middle class person, more of an option for jobs and etc. But like, if you like, if you look at what actually happened, he didn't really help the small businesses, which I do believe that's one of my more libertarian stances. Like, I believe that small businesses are really like the backbone of the American economy. He didn't really help the small businesses. He didn't really help the middle class at all. Economists are like they were like, I understand what you're trying to do, and it just didn't work. Corporations weren't coming back. And now, as taxpayers, we have to foot the bill for this huge deficit because he thought more taxes were going to come in since he was drawing those big corporations back, which never actually happened. So, as a libertarian, do you feel like that's an issue?
Yeah, I believe that's somewhat of an issue, but at the end of the day, I still believe his is better than Joe Biden, and I don't believe with Trump on fully on taxations. There are many other reasons I vote for Trump because he's the lesser of the two evils. I believe he's pro-life. I cannot vote for a pro-choice candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And so for those reasons, I voted for Trump. And I just don't like the way the Democratic Party going. I believe that they're going far left right now, and
Mm-hmm. What would you say were some policies that are? I'm trying to decide if I want to go that way. What policies do you like that Trump is pushing right now?
What policies do I like that Trump is pushing right now? As I said, I like his corporate tax rate thing. I like
But
that
that
he.
hasn't helped anything, though.
I,
Like,
it has helped people. It has helped the workers. It's helping bring back some jobs. It has got raises for some people in big corporations. So
but if it's not overall accomplishing the objective, and if it's hurting, because if you, and it's so bad because like under his tax plan, every few years, he's upping the taxes for lower income people. Um, like, and it was kind of like buried into it, so not many people like know that. But I think I'm pretty sure Washington posted an article on it, and they were talking about how like every few years now under his plan, it's majority of the lower income people who are going to be taxed, and that's where I feel like Trump is very establishment. He's really like excusing things for the big corporations, and I think he's helping them out, but it's not really drawing them back at the scale to help out the middle income and the small Americans, the small income Americans. So that's one of them. I really didn't like his tax plan, and I think that was the reason, like from a libertarian stance, like that really bothered me because he's like all talk and it didn't actually do anything good. It only did bad. Like, I'm sure. I mean, I'm talking about net. I'm sure it did bring up some jobs back, but it didn't help the small businesses or the lower income
Well,
people.
big businesses are still important to our economy. We need them a lot in many ways. I mean, if people, for all the hate Walmart and Amazon get, at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, we need them. Unless you want to
Mm-hmm.
pay double for computers, you need them for
Yeah,
economic. And also, like you could say about big business that it's so bad that Trump is getting jobs is making big businesses do better. But at the end of the day, it's not just rich people that own stocks. Many middle class people own stocks. I mean,
but it's decreasing now. It used to be that people would have 401ks, but you just don't see people are not investing like they used to because they don't have as much discretionary income.
well, I mean, like right now, COVID is a different story. Right now with the COVID-19, I
This
mean,
has been going on for the past like few years. This isn't even just like a COVID thing. This is just, and that's what you see is you have like a stagnant lower middle income, and you have a GDP keep on going up, which is like there's an issue there because it's not trickling down to the lower class. Like the income isn't trickling down like it should be. What's happening is that it's conglomerating up in the highest echelons of the society. And that's, I mean, do you feel like that's an issue, or do you feel like somehow, what do you feel like Trump is going to do to help that?
what I believe he should do, I
Or what
believe
is he doing?
to help. I don't think has he raised taxes on lower businesses. Has he raised taxes on them? On small businesses? I don't think he has. I think it also
But
covers because at the end of the day, like even what you call small businesses, they're still big businesses in the tax rate. Like if a person owns three businesses in town, it's going
mm-hmm,
even though it might be a small business, it's still considered in the tax rate considered like a big business. One of the lies about taxation, like people won't say about it's the 1% whole thing is that it's actually not as black and white as people say. Like the 1%, if a person sells his house in New York,
mm-hmm.
for that year, he's gonna be part of the 1%. So I mean, like people like say taxing, like cutting taxes for rich people. It doesn't just help rich people. It also helps people that are that are, I guess, middle class, but sort of like selling like a nice house or like doing well for that year because
Mhm.
the fluctuation of the 1%, it's not like it doesn't last for 50 years for that person. It lasts for at least like a most 10 years and then it goes back and forth if you get what I'm saying.
Hmm. Um, I think I'm following a little bit what you're saying. I guess my concern is that they actually have had people like self-report who are smaller businesses, and a lot of them are saying that either their taxes didn't change, or that like they maybe went down marginally, but then that's just going to go up
Yeah,
overall with like the tax hikes that he has over the years, and then you have the tariffs, which on average cost like the average American household like $700 to $800 a year, which is like an equivalent of a pretty big tax hike. So I'm just not really seeing him like I see what I see with Trump is he's like really helping the like really rich, the corporations. He's just kind of going along with that like establishment. But then the actual population, the working class, they're not really like benefiting, and he's telling them that they're benefiting them.
I mean they were until the COVID-19 thing. I mean, I think like they were benefiting. Wages were going up with Black Americans, white Americans. It was going up until the COVID-19 thing happened.
I
That's
mean,
why.
I know unemployment was going down, but most economists say that that's because of the Fed's low interest rates. I'm not. Do you have statistics on anything like with wages rising? Because my understanding is that they've been pretty stagnant for a while now.
I mean, I haven't really done research yet. If I'm being honest with you, I don't really research about what Trump has accomplished because I don't really trust any statistics. It's either very pro Trump or very against. I'm more like I'm more studying. I'm more like researching more of policy wise, not really into like is this president good? Is this president bad? Is what he's doing? So I really, if I'm being honest with you, I don't really know too much about like
Mhm.
how he's. I just hear talking points, but I don't know.
Right.
I'm
So
sorry,
on
but
a no, on a like a I know, and this isn't even something we were originally going to talk about. I just think it's interesting to hear your feedback. But on like you said, you're researching more policy wise.
yeah.
Like what like policy wise would you say if it's not necessarily the tax cuts that are really helping you, what have you researched that you like that Trump is doing? Because
Uh,
I've been looking for stuff. I mean, I think he's done some stuff for veterans, which might be good, but like I'm not really seeing anything.
yeah. I'm gonna be. I don't really see anything that has changed really, which is basically with every president. But I still voted for him for the pro life issue, and because I just
Hmm.
didn't like the way Joe Biden was going. It's not like I, agree totally for what he's doing. I
Gotcha.
know, yeah,
I'm actually pro-life too.
okay, yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
so I guess my question would be like, what is it that Trump could do or has done for the pro-life? I know defunded, he took Planned Parenthood off of like the federal funding, so he's done that. But then they still got like the same amount or more funding through like COVID response and COVID tax write-offs for this year. So it really didn't do much. But like other than that, like what has Trump done for like the pro-life movement?
Um, he has for the pro. He hasn't done that much. I'm gonna be honest with you. People will say done a lot. He did. He has not done a lot. I believe we should have somebody that does a lot, but unfortunately, they are not. They are not doing a lot for trying to limit the numbers of abortion, trying to legalize it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Unfortunately, no. It's like, and I don't see it with really any any presidential candidate doing it. It's just reality of life. I mean,
I
still,
agree with you
yeah,
100%. And I think it's kind of funny to me that people are electing presidents based on that because I feel like that's almost like calling an electrician to unclog your toilet, right? It's like it's not
I
really his job. It's more of
no,
like the legislation and the
yeah, yeah,
legislator's job.
right, yeah, yeah. I agree with that point. Yeah, so yeah.
I so that's kind of where I feel like I guess electing a president because he agrees with you on like abortion is kind of like I see a lot of evangelicals saying that, like, evangelical Christians, but then at the same time they don't share his morals and stuff, like how he treats women, like so many things that he's done in his past are just so crappy, like on a moral level. And it's like if he's not really doing anything on a policy level when it comes to like abortion, it seems a little weird that they'd still vote for him just for that when he's like a terrible moral president in every other situation.
I mean, I don't care what he does in his personal life. So I mean, like,
I mean, I'm not even saying on like a personal level, like he's harassed people. Like I know there were multiple people, you know, I'm sure you heard that he owned a beauty pageant for a long time. And some of these girls were underage, and since he owned it, he would just go back behind the
yeah,
dressing room.
I think I heard that comment. I think I read from fact check that's actually false. About, let me just see if I can get it.
I watched the entire clip. He was on a radio show, and he said that he would go back and they would be like naked, and someone asked him if he felt like it was against the policy to sleep with him, and he said that they were almost obligated to do it because he was the owner. And they asked him, so is that a conflict of interest? And he said, well, that's something to worry about in the future.
I mean, it was
probably
he was just locker room talk. I mean, if that's really what you're going to like end up like, because what men say behind closed doors are, you know, very derogatory. Go to like a YMCA and you're going to hear many derogatory statements. So I mean, like, if you're really going, it's not really the best way to take down, if you really want to take down Trump, on this saying grab them by the pussy, because at the end of the day, most men say that. And if you really think that men are not like that, men do not say that behind closed doors. And women also do that in locker rooms. I'm sure they say, it's just, you know, you're going to get yourself, you know, disappointed because everybody does that, you know, it's just, this is just how life is.
That was a different context than the beauty pageant. And it wasn't all, because I understand, like, you could say, oh, it was just all talk, but you actually have these girls who are in beauty pageants who were saying that they were so uncomfortable and they felt like they were almost obligated to sleep with him since he was the owner, and he would do that. And that was definitely a conflict of interest. So there's, again, I think it just goes back to, like, here evangelicals, they like the fact that he's pro-life, even though he's not really doing anything for it. But then they ignore a lot of these other things that are very explicitly like anti-Christian, like moral. So it seems like a little bit of a double standard there. Do you see what I'm saying?
I guess I haven't really researched that too much either, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, no. I can send you the raw clip. It's crazy. I was amazed.
okay, sure, I guess. But yeah. I haven't really researched it. I don't really know if I should speak about this right now because I don't know too much about this. I don't, you know, if I'm being honest with you. So
no, that's totally fair. And I respect you for saying that. Sometimes a lot of people just try to make BS responses. So I appreciate it. I mean, you can't know everything. And that's the thing, is like, people, you're not going to know everything, so I totally get it. What about on like more of a social level with the political climate? I know you said that you were kind of against the BLM movement. What's your perspective on that?
I believe they're racist. I believe that their movement is counterproductive. They only care about, like, because at the end of the day, get rid of all police shootings and it's not going to fix anything for the black community, because at the end of the day, more blacks are killed by homicides and stuff like that than by police. You know, and it's sort of like counterproductive. I mean, I'll put it this way: why don't we have a men's lives matter? Why don't we say, because more men are killed by police than women? You know, and you saw statistics. We don't have a men's lives matter movement. Why is that?
So to that, I would say because we don't have like a systemic issue when it comes to like men, right? I think there's some major systemic issues to explain why there's a lot of like criminality in black communities. And I think they're I wouldn't say pretty easy, but they can be fixed.
What makes you say that there's no systemic issues with men, but there is with black people? Because
I agree. There are some systemic issues, but I think those are more on a cultural level, where men are like expected to be more aggressive. Men are expected to They're discouraged from showing emotion. They're not having the healthy balance of like a mental state, and I think that's reflected in their suicides as well. They have much
Um,
higher suicide
I
rates.
mean, why do you think the police shoot men more than they shoot women?
Oh, because men commit more crime for sure.
Uh, um, Same
And I
thing
think
can
there's,
apply
I
to
mean,
black per capita. They commit way more crime than white people. You know,
so I mean, there's multiple things. I think I'm not sure the Black Lives Matter is fully about. It's not fully about police shootings. I think part of it is, and I understand that Black people are killed in proportion to the violent crimes that they commit, and I understand that. But my question would go a little bit deeper than that, and that's only like one little part that the Black Lives Matter movement touches on. And I think the Black Lives Movement is really trying to get to like, why is this happening? Let's fix why this is happening. And there are some definite racist things that come up with law enforcement and race. Like, I'm not sure if you've heard of this, but there's been a study where it was like this huge study. It was like a mega study where um, they looked at like traffic stops, and they found that during the day, Black people were stopped much more than white people.
I mean,
Um, but
I
then
mean,
I'm sorry, just hold on. But then
sorry.
at nighttime, they found that it was the same. So it's a little weird. It's like, why would there be that difference? You know what I mean?
I mean, your correlation does not equal causation, and also there is some like men are stopped way more in police traffic stops than women. So you could probably put this in the same way as to why, because you have to realize that blacks commit more crime than white people are more likely to commit more crime. So now this doesn't give an excuse for what the police for discrimination or stuff like that, but you have to
Mhm.
realize that some stereotypes, and besides for this, like I have questions for your systemic issue because
Yeah.
like Jews have faced this systemic issues, Asians, even Indian
Mhm.
Americans, stuff like that. But as far as I could see in the Wikipedia, I could even put this in the comments or whatever.
Mhm.
Asian Americans make more than white people.
Mhm.
Indian Americans make more than white people. Even Palestinian Americans make more than white people. Gay
Mhm.
Americans make more than straight people, I think, or make about. So I mean, like, if it's all about systemic issues, why aren't other races failing in that sense?
Right. So my response to that would be that they haven't seen the systemic oppression that Black people have seen to the scale that Black people have seen. So a lot of these people are immigrants, right? And especially with more recent immigration policy, the requirements are pretty strict. Where you have to have like a solid job lined up, you have to have like multiple things going on. It's not like you had this horde of people of just one demographic. They were stripped of, or not, they didn't have any wealth, and then they were oppressed for like 200 years plus.
Hmm.
And then like, hey, you need to build a wealth from the ground up. Like, that's not what was happening. And you didn't have like situations where when they were building that from the ground up, white people would come in and just destroy their cities, because that's also happened. um, that's just not the same thing. Like, I understand there's been oppression, but it's just not at the same level.
Well, if you hold that systemic is the biggest issue, though,
Hmm.
even though they might not get the same systemic issue, still they should be lower than white people. Still, if the I mean, what's it called, Japanese Americans, you could say they don't suffer as much as white people as a black people, but they still have systemic oppression. Maybe not as much as white people, but they still had what's it called again? Were affected by redlining. Yet we
Hmm.
don't see them getting affected by it. So maybe it's that blacks are more likely to be raised without a father. The unwed household is very high.
Hmm.
School systems are not good. Maybe it's just more than racism in itself, because you know Jewish Americans, they also were very discriminated against. I think even more than black people, and they were affected by redlining. They came to America almost with no income whatsoever, and they're doing pretty well. So do you think it's maybe more than the racism that's affecting the black people right now?
So when I'm talking about racism, I'm not just talking about intent, because yes, I agree that there's intent is racist. So you can be like, oh, you can call a Jewish person a slur, and I do consider that racism. But I think what the Black community is dealing more than that is institutionalized racism. And I think the redlining issue is actually one of the bigger things because they faced redlining issues much more than any other demographic.
I'm not sure. Jews
Other
also face
demographics
it.
other demographics faced it, but it wasn't to the extent that Black people did. They
Well, actually, with the redlining issue, actually, home ownership actually went up with redlining. If that's it actually went up. Black home ownership rate went up with redlining.
so so it wasn't just with home ownership. You also have to look at where they had their homes, because what would happen is you wouldn't like Black people would not be able to get into a higher income like neighborhood. And when those houses were going up in home value, they were not able to get in on that. And what would happen with white people is they would sell their home, they would get a chunk of money, and they would be able to send their children off to college with that chunk of money.
Yeah,
Off of the home equity, and that's like Black people that could not happen with them, because they could buy homes, but it was in a community that the home values were not increasing, because they were like lower income, and there were so many and that's like kind of why redlining existed. Um,
right. Well,
so
you,
you didn't have the same, and that was all the way up to the six. And they even found a bank, and this isn't just like one time. They found an actual like bank who was still participating in widespread redlining in 2015. Like this isn't like ancient history.
I'm not so sure about that the 2015 thing, but back to what you said. But like, and you could say I'm not sure if you're right that it didn't affect other groups as much as, but let's say it didn't affect, but it still affected them a little bit, a little bit, and we still saw that it doesn't go. Even if it affected a little bit, shouldn't that be a result somewhat of the what's happening now? Even if shouldn't they be a little bit behind white people right now if it affected them a little bit?
Not, I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily, because you also have a lot of immigration from those countries. So you're having like a lot of immigration from like Asian countries, and they're high income. They're, very educated. And it's not like a horde of people, like thousands of people were brought over all at once, and then they were like put in communities. And like I'm not going to say that like that Black communities don't have issues, because of course they do, but my point is more that a lot of like the issues are being furthered by the establishments that we have currently. And I think it's like affecting Black communities on a larger level, even if the establishments themselves don't intend to do so. So like, for example, I think a lot of police officers are fine people, and I think they are trying to like uphold the law, but I think a lot of policies are hurting Black people.
Like what policy?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the ones that have actually been rescinded through the BLM movement have been hurting them. I think overall the war on drugs was overtly racist under the Nixon administration,
Right.
and the war on drugs is still happening. You had stuff like cocaine be having a different sentence than like crack, even though they have the exact same effects on your body, and it's just how you smoke it. And Black people just happen to disproportionately use one over the other, and they, got much heavier prison sentences for that. You still, I mean, that those things are being combated. You still have like no-knock warrants that are being currently rescinded because of the BLM movement. You have police officers who aren't holding each other accountable. So that has been, starting to take an effect through the BLM movement, that there's like a push for police officers to hold each other accountable. So there's like all these things. There's also like right now, police officers aren't coming from the communities that they are policing. So
I mean,
you're not
and whose fault is that? I mean, like, I'm sure they would. Do you think the police community would discriminate? I don't think they might. I think they even have affirmative action programs. I think they would love to have more Black people, but you're just not interested in joining the force. I mean, like,
No, I'm saying that they're just the police officers are limited. They're not coming from the communities they're policing, and they're just being sent in. And that's something that Biden's actually going to change, or at least he said he wanted to.
okay, and how is he going to plan on getting the people to in that community to join the police force? What
I
if
think
they're
there's
less
multiple
qualified?
ways.
What if they're less qualified?
Yeah, you don't have to be super qualified to
I
be
mean,
like.
you
There's
do.
literal quotas when it comes to police
I mean,
officers.
I
You
think we should
have
have more
above like
qualified.
a certain IQ.
I
Like
mean,
it doesn't take a. I think if I believe that if Biden had a strategy of saying, you know what, I want to help the Black community. I want to be able to create a system where even white communities and Black communities and of course mixed communities, they're being all communities are being policed by the people in the communities. I think that's going to have a much higher success rate of not only bringing people into the police force, but also reducing shooting in different like situations with police. I think that's going to drastically reduce, and that's not even like um, a race issue specifically, but I do think it disproportionately affects Black people.
mm-hmm.
Do you think that's true, or what do you think?
But what you say? What you just say again? I'm sorry, it was a little bit.
No, I'm just saying
Sorry.
that having a community, because there's a lot of distrust right now between the Black community and the police force, and I think there's good reason for that. So I think if you actually have the Black community police officers coming from the community that they are policing, it's going to increase that trust and decrease a lot of the issues that we see specifically in the Black community, because white people don't have the same caution or at least the same level of it when it comes to police officers.
I mean, that sounds pretty racist, just to hire people based on color. Is that what you're
No,
saying?
no. But hire people based on their community.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, the world we live in right now, we have predominantly Black communities. We have predominantly white communities. I don't understand why we should be sending people from different communities into other communities to be policing them, especially when we have an issue with like police distrust, especially in Black communities.
And what if this doesn't work? You're not able to recruit as many people in that community to become police officers. What if?
I mean, I guess that's something we can come to and cross that bridge, right? But I mean, I don't see why that shouldn't work if we're starting an initiative to be like, we're trying to make your situation better in your community. If you are wanting to be a police officer, please join, please sign up, and help protect your community in the best way possible. I'm not saying that I don't know of a reason why people wouldn't be up for that.
Shouldn't we just have better training? I mean, wouldn't that be just as good? Just have better training, maybe. Like,
I don't think that's just as good. I think that's might be a factor in an overall.
If
are they mutually exclusive?
Not majorly exclusive, but I think community versus training. I'd rather have a more qualified police officer than a police officer in that community that's less qualified. Okay, if you can have both, you can have both. I wouldn't mind that, but I think I don't think that should overcharge people in what's it called again? Overcharge qualified people. I don't think it's really going to affect the crime rate anyways. I mean, as long as you still have unwed mothers, as long as you still have a bad culture there where being smart is considered being a traitor, I just don't think having a good police system. I don't think that's going to help. You could eliminate police brutality, but I think there's more issues than police brutality. Do you care more about police brutality than gang violence on kids? Or
no, definitely not. 100% not. I think a lot of the reasons that gangs exist is because of the war on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all of these things can kind of be systemically fixed. And I think that's one of the biggest things that BLM is focusing on. And they might not be focusing on it in the correct way. I think we'll look back in 20 years and be able to figure that out. But I think that that's exactly what they're pushing for, is like to end war on drugs, to end these things, and to be able to implement things that will help everyone in the long run.
I mean, even the war on drugs, you still think, even with the war on drugs, you think that's just going to fix everything. And I'm against the war on drugs. I believe all drugs should be legal, but you still think because there's many more crime that happens just besides for drugs that people are getting mean, there's Grand Theft Autos. There's many stuff that's going to happen. You could eliminate
Mhm.
war on drugs, but that's not going to. There's still going to be policemen in that community, even without the war on drugs.
So my thought to that, and I understand what you're saying. I think a lot of the reason that there's a lot of distrust in Black communities when it comes to police officers is specifically because of the war on drugs. I think you would have an increase of a better relationship between police officers and the community if, number one, the police officers come from the community that they're policing. Number two, if the war on drugs ends. And number three, if we get a better education system. And I think those things combined, I'm sure combined with a few other things, would really lower all crime in that area, because you'd have a better police force citizen relationship, and you'd have that like underlying crime ridden like drug scene really decreasing. So I think indirectly, I think it would actually really help to end the war on drugs for the Black communities. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like there's 100% grounds for what BLM is fighting for. And I mean, I guess you can like argue about the optics, but I mean, there's so many there's so many movements in the past that had, quote unquote bad optics that we look back on now that we're like, oh my goodness, I'm glad the movement isn't defined by those bad optics.
I mean, it's not just bad optics; it's just pure racism. I mean, go what they're saying, and it's no different than what the alt-right is saying about Jews. Really, about what they say about whites is no different what the alt-right is saying about Jews.
How so?
I mean, the alt-right says we're controlled by Jews. We're down because of the Jews controlling everything. Bill M says we're down because the white people are controlling the system, stuff like that. So I mean, like it's sort of like, I guess,
right. Largely, I feel like there's much more of a basis. I mean, we are the majority in the country, and we do control pretty much everything. I don't necessarily believe that means that in itself means that we're like evil overlords. But I think what was happening here is that minorities' voices are not being heard. Because they aren't in these like positions of media. There's like a disproportionate amount of Black people in more positions of power, and I think that's kind of what they're pushing for, like a more equal distribution rather than just ostracizing and hating on all white people.
I mean, like maybe it's just because more white people are qualified. Same reason just why there are more Jews owning banks and running media. It's because they're more qualified. It's not because
you have to ask, like, why are white people more qualified than Black people in these situations?
I mean, it's not only white; it's also Asians. They're also higher up because they spend more time on average. White people tend to spend more time on homework. They tend to have a nuclear family. They tend to go to better schools, which and these stuff all leads up to why they're doing better. Like even in low income white neighborhoods, they still end up, they don't commit as crime because of the nuclear family. And I think that's the most important thing that's going to, because one thing you said about the immigration thing, many immigrants come here poor, right? How are they able
already coming through? So unless they're like coming here to seek asylum, a lot of them are coming with like jobs lined up with like some family wealth. They're not coming here like with $5 in their pocket like they used to. Well, I understand that because like there's a lot of immigration.
I mean, like the Jews came here with very little money, and they are doing way better than blacks. Why do you think that is? Why don't you think the system has hurt them as much?
I mean, I think that I'm sure there's more reasons, but like from off the top of my head, they came here like a while ago, right? And they are very, the Jews are very, they invest a lot in their own communities.
Okay, so isn't that what, sorry.
I'm sorry. I wanted to finish my point there. But they weren't limited when they came over here from starting businesses and those types of things. So Blacks were specifically limited from what they could do for hundreds of years. So right now, like what we're seeing, like a huge push for like Black people to start their own businesses and stuff. But for years and years, they weren't able to do that. So they weren't really able to invest in their own communities.
Well, Jews also, until they came here, and they were still in, very discriminated against. Go to Europe, and they were treated worse than blacks, I believe. Go to you read some history about how Jews are treated, and just not and just many groups. Like there are many minority groups that are treated horribly. Like what do they call it? Armenians? I think Malaysians in Asia maybe, and they were
Mm-hmm.
not doing that bad. Why is it only affecting blacks? Why do you think it's more than the system that's
Well, I think it really comes down to like a lot of what happened with like slavery and Jim Crow and all those things that were like it was hundreds of years that they were oppressed, and you saw situations where like Jews came over. I know I'm an Irish person, so I came over during the Irish potato famine. They were oppressed but it wasn't nearly the same length of time.
Well, let's say I don't agree with that point about the Jews
And also,
specifically.
I'm sorry, one small little thing. Also, a lot of people who were coming in, they had already had their own businesses in their countries that they were immigrating from. So they already had a skill. They already had, things that they were able to market. Where a lot of Black people, they had Jim Crow laws. They they weren't able to read. There were so many things that they were forced down, and I feel like after like 60 years, everyone's like, why aren't they the same as white people now? And it just seems slightly disingenuous. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, like, still, even if you say like that they're not treated as bad, I still think Jews were treated more badly in Europe. But let's say they're treated less badly than other groups. Those groups are still treated badly, and
I'm,
should and the system and still shouldn't they be at least be a little bit behind whites? Shouldn't Asians be at least a little bit behind whites? Shouldn't Jews be a little bit behind white? If you believe that the system is not the one and only thing, then yeah, then I could. But you say that the system is the main thing that's failing them. So if that's the case, shouldn't the same thing be applied to everybody else? Even maybe not as much as blacks. Shouldn't they be be a little bit behind the whites? I mean,
so I feel like there's a little bit of an issue with the framing. I think um, it's more than just like not treating people well. And again, I think this goes back to what I was saying with like an actual like laws to keep people down, and like people not being treated well. And I understand that, like, of course there was a ton of like anti-Semitism during like World War II. Of course there was, right? And it was huge, and but these people like already knew how to read. They already had trades. So when they fled Germany and Europe, they came over here and they tried to start businesses. So they already had marketable skills, right? And of course, they were treated terribly. I think it's a little weird to be comparing Black people to Jewish people,
well,
and it's a little like what how do you measure which one we're treated worse? You know, it's
I mean,
weird. You
like
don't want to say
I'm
that.
just trying to say this, but you're saying that the system is the reason why they're behind. That's the main reason I think you're saying. So if that's the
Mhm.
case, then
Because they
maybe not as much, but shouldn't the Jews still be less? Shouldn't the
not
Asians still be?
necessarily. I mean, you're already seeing there being an equilibrium with like Black people starting to catch up to white people when it comes
Okay.
to stuff, but we're trying to take away this the ongoing systemic issues that are still affecting them right
Um,
now, such as the war on drugs
I mean, the
that
war
were
on drugs.
literally
White.
implemented to keep Black people down. Like
Uh,
there are all these things that like, and that's we just don't see that with other races that are like actual policy that still exists to keep them down. There's
well,
just
the war on drugs were supported by the Black Caucus was supported by the Black Caucus. Are you saying they are in on it? They're in on it to put the Black people down the Black Caucus?
I don't know what you. I all I know is that Nixon literally they had like advisors that admitted
No, I'm
to the
saying
fact.
the crime bill, the crime bill. You know, I'm talking about the crime bill.
Oh, for the Joe Biden crime bill.
Yes.
Um, so I understand. I agree that that was a racist bill, and I also agree that in that time period there was a huge push from both Republicans and Democrats to crack down on crime. I don't like the bill, and I think he was crappy for drafting the bill, but I understand that he was doing it out of like a democratic sense, and I'd rather have a president who listens to the democracy than one who just kind of goes off on a tangent like what we've seen with Trump. So like right now, Joe Biden is proposing a lot of policies to take away a lot of the bad things that like the crime bill has actually implemented. And a lot of these things are really on the state level, like 92, I think around 92% of like incarcerations are on the state level rather than the federal. So I think this really needs to be addressed on the state level.
I mean, are you going to, give credit to Trump for, the Fair Step Act? The main stuff he did do good. Like used to be that pregnant women, when they gave birth in prison, they were chained to the bed. Trump got rid of it. That was one of Trump's things. So don't you give Trump credit for that?
I mean, yeah, if he did that, it's good. I just think that, I mean, he's done a lot more harm with like how polarized he's made the races. And I don't think Obama did a very good job with that either. If you actually, I think there's a Gallup poll that shows like, since 2010, race relations have been going down, but like at 2016, it's gone down even further. Like, yeah. I'm not sure. Like, I understand there's some small steps that Trump might have done, but then he also like Barr was looking into ways to call BLM protesters for insurrection. He was like trying to.
They are a terrorist group. You don't think they're a terrorist group, BLM?
The organization?
I mean, like, if I went to a BLM rally, say, fuck Black Lives Matter, if I would say that, you don't think I would probably get punched in the face? If I would go to Trump rally and say, fuck Donald Trump, I might get harassed, but I'm not going to get punched, most likely. Or won't get as
I think it's dangerous to call a movement a terrorist movement. If you're calling the organization a terrorist organization, they have specifically decried crime. I'm not sure if any crime itself has been linked to the organization.
I mean, like if 7% of Trump rallies ended up in violence, you wouldn't call that a terrorist? You would be okay with that? I mean, you have to.
Right. I mean, no, I understand what you're saying, but also whenever there's like a civil movement, you're going to have rioting.
I mean, I think that's causing more problems. Rioting black-owned business.
I agree. Rioting, I don't like rioting and I want to fix it, but I don't want to fix it in a reactive way. I want to fix it in a proactive way. I want to, because hold on, if we fix it in a reactive way, and this is what we saw in 2016 with like Trayvon Martin, we tried to fix it in a reactive way and it went away for like a couple years and then it just came back stronger. I'd rather actually fix the issue that's causing the civil unrest. If riots are going to be inevitable, and that's what we've seen throughout history, that when there's this much civil unrest from civil rights issues, there's going to be riots. It's happened with MLK. This is just like a historical fact.
I mean, you're comparing this to MLK. You're comparing this to MLK, and first of all, the riots weren't good in MLK. I don't think we should have condoned that. But still, I mean, like you're comparing this movement to MLK. It's not MLK. Blacks are not drinking from separate water fountains. Blacks are not forced to go to different schools. It's not the same thing. It's based on a thing.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's based on an assumption that it's the same as men. Like basically, you're saying the movement doesn't make any sense in reality. In reality, it's the reason why blacks are shot more by police than whites is because not about racism or oppression, it's because of logistics and economics. They live in crime-heavy areas. They tend to commit more crime.
But my issue is that you're not asking why. Why is this?
Well, I know why.
Because of systemic issues, which I've outlined like multiple times in this debate or in this discussion. It's not a debate.
This is where I disagree with. I believe it's more of a nuclear family. Like even the drug issue, you say, why do you think it affects the black people? Why do you think more of them are taking drugs?
Man, there's a lot with that one.
I mean, like, so what's wrong with the drug? If why do you say it's racist though? Why do you say it's racist?
A huge example of this is just even the crack versus the cocaine thing that I brought up before, where white people and black people, they use different types typically on averages, right? And the type that black people use is criminalized much further. Or even if you look at like college campuses, college kids use like more drugs than a lot of like the black community on again over statistical averages, but you don't see cops coming in and busting college campuses.
Well,
You see that happening, and it's not like, it's not about the drugs. It's not. And if it was, you would see like cops coming in and busting college campuses and catching all these college kids who are like trying to get high on like on
I
all these.
mean,
Do you see what I'm saying?
no, most drug arrests that happen, many of them happen because let's say I'm driving and I'm driving while I'm drunk, the police will pull me over. They'll get me with having marijuana in my car or some cocaine. That's how many of the drug. If you read, I'm not sure. Do you have like a local newspaper?
Yeah.
They where they mention crime statistics. Many of the times where people are caught with drugs is caught because they're committing more crime. It's committing more crime, and they happen to have drugs in their possessions. Do you think that is some of the reasons why
No,
more?
but here's the reason why I feel like Black people are pulled over. Number one, they're pulled over much more often. They're searched much more often. With actually the cops find less contraband in Black people's cars typically than white people's cars, but they still are searched more often. There's that. Also, it's really weird to me that during the day, Black people aren't pulled over disproportionately than white people, but then at nighttime, or no, I'm sorry, during the day they are pulled over disproportionately to white people. Then at nighttime, when you can't tell the race of the driver, they're not. I just don't see that as being anything like, oh, they're committing more crime, therefore they're getting caught more with drugs. I see like a specific targeting of like Black people by the police force, and it might not even be like intentional. Like a lot of times police officers have an implicit bias, right?
I mean, so they're saying like the implicit bias. I don't see them doing this with Asians or with what or with like or like just like Muslims or anything. I don't see them pulling them over. Why don't they have the same problem with Muslims or with Asians or with gays to pull over? Why don't they have the same thing with those groups that they
It's
pull?
really hard to nail why people have implicit bias.
I mean, but I'm saying like why not against Asians? We don't see them doing this with Asian drivers. Why you say it's not with that? And you could probably with the same statistic, you could probably say that police are more likely to pull over men than they are with women. They're more likely to probably uh, to like arrest men with more contraband. I mean, even if they have less contraband than women, do you think like why is that? You say,
I haven't seen anything like that before.
I mean,
I mean,
like,
I think it would be
I,
interesting.
I mean, like you could probably search it. I'm pretty sure men are pulled way more over than what's it called again than women.
Women.
I mean, like even like black men are more killed by police than women. Way more. But I don't see people
Mhm.
saying men lives matter.
Well, I
Maybe
mean,
you think it's more
there's
than this.
a lot of issues, and I think actually, you know what? I think feminism is actually trying to push a little bit more for men's rights currently. You have the MRAs, the men's right advocates, but I feel like women are pushing more against that like toxic masculinity narrative that is causing um, a lot of like men to commit disproportionate amount of crime. I mean, of course, you're going to have gender. Are you a gender abolitionist or just?
No, I'm just saying, like, what's it called again? Do you know how many feminist movements, like custody laws? Do you know how many feminists that are trying to go for equal custody laws? The answer is zero. Feminist groups are trying
That's
to
not
do that.
true.
Yeah,
That's not true. There's a lot of feminists who are advocating for men in courts.
have you? So why has when it has gone up to the elections or something like that, the feminist groups have voted against it?
Are feminist groups like in legislature?
No, but when they endorse these when those things go to the legislators, these feminist groups don't they go
No,
against them. They say
I
that.
do. Yeah, I mean, I agree that there's some like there are still. I remember a while ago, Hunter and I went to a women's march, and one of the things that we were told by one of like the feminists was that like there were still feminists, that a lot of the feminists that were in charge of like organizations were still more of like the old school feminists, um, who were like, oh, guys bad, women good. But I think there's being a change and a push for more equal rights for men. And I mean, I agree. That's on a case by case basis. I haven't like looked at like statistical averages of like how many feminists are advocating for men's rights versus like men.
I mean, a
Do
feminist magazine. How many times have you saw them talking about custody laws or stuff like that? How many times have you saw them speaking about it?
I don't read feminist
Okay,
magazines.
fine.
All I know is
And
that
like, do you ever hear feminists?
quite a few times, like especially influencers online who call themselves feminists, which I believe the influencers online are rising, of course, in influence because people are turning more to alternative news sources. So people who are self-proclaimed feminists are advocating more for men's rights, even on far left. Like I know, you probably don't like him very much, but I know Vosh has multiple times advocated for men's rights. I think they had like a Vice video, which is very liberal, and they had like two feminists on against a couple MRAs, and the feminists were the ones advocating for men's rights with like the court system. So, I mean, I think my point being, I think there's being a push away from women good, men bad type of like one-dimensional feminism.
Have you ever watched The Red Pill?
No.
I watched it. They answer these questions because in the Red Pill movie, they explain how like these feminist groups do not do anything about. They actually even go against like even in cases like what do they call those again? Child support. Feminists are against abolishing child support. I mean, I'm for child support, but I'm just trying to put like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that feminists are against abolishing child support because I think child support should actually be the case. Like,
Well, I mean, like
child support.
it's kind of hypocritical if you hold that we should have abortion but not child support. I mean, but we should force men to have child support. Sorry.
I understand your argument with that, but I do believe that if I think that's a tough one. I think that's a conversation, a whole new conversation, and I'd be totally open for having that with you.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting perspective, and as someone who is more pro-life, my perspective would be that like if you do have a child, then either I think you should put it in a child that was unwanted. Either you should put it up for adoption, or if just one parent wants it, I do believe child support should be given. And I think there's room for potential like tweaks with the system. I'm not saying it's a perfect system, but in concept, I think child support is a necessary issue.
All right, sure.
But I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I just have one question, if you don't mind me asking.
100%.
I know you have gotten harassed a bunch on Twitter about this, but something I'm just wondering is, would you debate the actual Justice Warrior? Would you debate him?
Me? Oh man.
I mean, I don't see why not.
I feel like he is a little slippery.
I think he's actually pretty one of the good ones. He's not as biased as the other ones. I believe he's actually pretty reasonable. If you speak to him, I think you'll probably see that.
I honestly don't know enough about him, but the one time that I had experience with him, and I'm sure you've seen this a little bit on Twitter, and I'll explain it to you. But what happened specifically is Hunter cited something in his article, or I guess in his video, saying that parental support seems to be correlated with a decrease in suicide for trans youth, right? What happened was actual Justice Sean basically replied, and he was like, ho, 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 he didn't read the study, right? And he's like, and he shows something above the actual figure that Hunter cited. He's like, it says it's 84%, or there's 84 like people in the study, and that, and therefore it's not statistically significant, right? But then if you go down, you actually see the graph that Hunter cited, and it literally said that it was statistically significant. Hunter replied saying that, be like, I actually read it, and this is what it said, and it said it was statistically significant. And then Sean responded being like, oh, so like the study's wrong, and it's biased and all this stuff, and it's not actually statistics. So it's like, if your issue was with his study, attack the study. Don't attack Hunter for not reading the study. Slippery, right? If his contention was with the study, attack the study. What he was doing was attacking Hunter for not reading the study, which he obviously did. Sean himself didn't read the study fully, or else he would have seen the study said that it was statistically significant, and that was my entire issue with it.
I mean, it's just one thing. I'm sure, like, if you have him in a debate and he does this again, you could call him out. I mean, like, I don't see why. You're just giving him more momentum.
That's the issue, is that it's hard to be able to call someone out when someone says, oh, like cites like an obscure reason why a study shouldn't be valid, and be like, okay, let's see, hold on, let's take 5 minutes to review this. Like, it's a little more difficult. It's easier. I do believe you're definitely in good faith, and I really appreciate having this conversation with you. But if you get down to like the nitty gritty of like whether the study is like is good or not, it's just the purpose of debate, I feel like, is obfuscated. Do you see what I mean?
I see what you mean. I guess I would have to have, maybe this will go on Twitter, I don't know. Maybe I could have actual Justice Warrior respond to this. Maybe because I'm going to admit it, I'm not so sure. I don't know too much about this whole situation. I'm not going to pretend like I do, but I just assume that, like, in order to get rid, if you believe his ideas are bad, just debate him. Even if he, like, Vash, I mean, like, what if Hunter didn't debate Vash because Vash has some pretty sorry, my speech. Yeah, he has some pretty, saucy views. I mean, like, I don't get, why does he just debate Nick? Why is he debate? And maybe he could change Nick for the good. Maybe he could debate, like, maybe they can even, have some common ground. I don't.
Yeah, I think number one, I think there's not all people are equal when it comes to debating, right? So like, you're going to have some people who, like, the most difficult part about debating it with them is that you just have a very different, like, value system, right? So that's when you have to, like, get to the core values. You have other people who values more like statistics, and Hunter's not, like, he's not a statistician. So if you go up against someone who actually feels like they have, like, authority in statistics, you have to, like, really prepare when it comes to, like, stats.
So yeah, I mean,
especially if that's going to be like a central point of the discussion, and that's going to be different from, like, some rando on the internet who's like the Beardson guy that Hunter debated, who was like, just like, oh, I hate trans people. He was very transparent about his, like, bigotry with stuff.
I mean, like, but that's what I'm saying. That person is he's not the best debater. I mean, like, I'm not the best debater either. I had never been in a debate. I probably did not the best, but I'm saying, like, actual Justice Warrior, you can say what you want about him, but he's actually a pretty good debater.
I guess my question would be, do you understand how, like, even if people are kind of shitty people, that there might be differences in how you have to prepare and, like, what you have to look out for in debating them?
And I think you should go for
pointless.
I think you should just go for the challenge. I don't think he's as bad as you say. Maybe he is. I'm not trying to take any sides. Just believe it would be a fun debate, and maybe Hunter could get somewhere with him. Maybe he could even.
Maybe future. I don't know. I'm not like who books Hunter's debates, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, would you debate him?
That's something I'd have to, like, I do have to prepare for. I think he is a good rhetorician, and I think he is slippery with stats. So that's something I'd have to probably take, like, a crash course. I took Statistics 101 when I was 14 years old. So that was a long time ago. I had to take a crash course probably on Stats 101 so I can.
Let's say he agrees not to, and I'm not sure if he does. I'm not trying to, like I said, not trying to take any sides. I don't want to, as you can tell, I don't like trying to say stuff I don't know too much about. But
I appreciate that. I think that's really honest of you.
I don't want to make an ass out of myself. I see that's how people make an ass out. I saw Candace Owens with Joe Rogan when they were speaking about climate change, and I mean, like, I don't agree with climate change either, controversially enough. But I mean, like, if you don't know it, just don't argue. Just say I don't know it. It's okay. Right. Yeah, but I mean, like, let's say he says I won't do that. Let's say he says he won't do that. Would you debate him then?
I'd be up for it. I mean, potentially, again, I'd probably have to prepare a little bit and maybe have, like, a moderation. But that's something I'd definitely.
I mean, if you get, let's say you get a debater on your side, I'm sure you could get a good statistician. Like, I'm sure he will. He's very he really wants to debate you guys. I think,
Mhm.
and I think
Yeah,
he'll
I'd
be.
be open for it in the future. Right now, though, it's super busy. I know we're trying to like pump out a video a day, so it's pretty busy, especially with the holidays. But I'm definitely open for it in the future.
I mean, like, if you really are worried about the statistician thing, you could get a good moderator that could like fact check it. You know, any good moderators like that?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but I'm actually a moderator myself for
Okay,
debates.
so you can moderate the debate between them.
I'd be like, okay, hold on, you're interrupting me.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
No. I just was saying that's what I could be like if I was moderating my own debate that I was debating, and it might be a little funny, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But no, I really appreciate you coming on, and
Oh, sure.
thank you for reaching out.
Yeah,
I think we had a good talk.
yeah. Sure. Okay, fine. Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good
Bye.
one.
Bye. Bye.
I feel like that was good. I feel like he was a very genuine person, which I really appreciated. Um, what do you guys think? I feel like it went well. I think I'd like to have him on, and I feel like it would be good to go actually more in depth about some stuff. Um, maybe like I don't know. I feel like we skimmed through quite a few of topics, but maybe like, go deep on one might be interesting. But well, I am actually going to head out. I appreciate you all for watching. So thank you so much. And I hope you have a good day. I know for me right now it's snowing, so I'll probably take my kids out in the snow so they can play. But thank you for tuning in. Thanks for watching and have a great one.